Hello there, and welcome back to the Sleep Science Corner, where your pillow gets the best seat in the universe. Tonight, your eyes drift upward, and there, just past the edge of your imagination, you see it, a lone traveller, 3I/Atlas slipping toward the sun. Its surface is dark, silent and ancient, a block of interstellar ice that has spent millions of years between the stars. Out there in the galactic night, time almost forgot it existed. Now it's moving in, gaining speed, sunlight glinting across faint traces of dust. It's the kind of guest you'd never invite but secretly hope to spot, a cosmic drifter knocking on our solar system's door. And yes, you probably won't survive this ride if you actually were sitting on top of it. But luckily, this story is meant for listening, not impact. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're still awake enough to type post your location and your local time, I love seeing where all of you are tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You hover in the blackness, gazing at Atlas. The 3I in its name gives away the secret. It's only the third confirmed interstellar object humans have found, after ʻOumuamua in 2017 and Comet 2I/Borisov in 2019. You're not just looking at another icy chunk from the Kuiper Belt. This one doesn't belong here at all. Its velocity tells the story, too fast to be bound by the sun's pull, on a hyperbolic track that will eventually fling it back into the deep dark. It's the ultimate cosmic tourist. Arrives unannounced, looks around, and leaves without paying for parking. The first rays of sunlight catch on its crust, perhaps carbon black and soot-like from eons of cosmic radiation. You imagine standing nearby, though nearby here means millions of kilometers away, staring at something that once orbited a distant star before being thrown loose by gravity gone wrong. Historians still argue whether ancient astronomers who described hairy stars actually glimpsed something this exotic, or just the ordinary comets of our system. But you get the sense they would have written an entirely different mythology if they'd seen an interstellar visitor. The quiet is absolute, broken only by your imagination adding in the soft hiss of sublimating ice. A faint glow trails from the surface, particles kicked off like sparks from a fire. It's subtle now, but as Atlas approaches the inner solar system, the spectacle will grow. Already earthbound telescopes are plotting its course with obsessive attention, astronomers racing to collect data before it vanishes forever. You wonder if any of them pause late at night to whisper to themselves, "We're being visited again." A quirky thought drifts in. In medieval Europe, people once believed comets were bundles of burning air, set ablaze by celestial winds. If they could have seen this object streaking in from beyond the stars, maybe they'd have declared it a messenger from another world. In a way, they wouldn't have been wrong. You watch the darkness around it, feeling the scale of emptiness it has crossed. Light years of nothing, then this sudden tumble into the sun's influence. It's like finding a single seashell washed up from another ocean, small, quiet, but hinting at an entire shoreline far beyond your reach. And as you float beside it in this dreamlike vision, you feel your body relax, shoulders heavy, thoughts quieter, drifting on the same current that carries this comet through the night. You drift with Atlas as it presses forward, and you can't help but compare it to the others who have wandered through our skies before. You remember ʻOumuamua, the oddly shaped enigma from 2017. Some scientists insisted it looked like a cigar. Others argued it was more like a pancake, and then came the whispers. Was it artificial? A probe? A lost sail drifting between the stars? Historians still argue whether ʻOumuamua's sudden acceleration away from the sun was natural, driven by invisible outgassing, or something stranger. Either way, it was the first true interstellar guest we spotted, and it left faster than you could say, "Please don't be aliens." Then came Borisov in 2019, the second. That one was a little easier to digest, a more traditional comet with a glowing tail and a chemistry that resembled some of our homegrown comets. Imagine it. A speck launched from some far-off planetary nursery, flung into the abyss by a passing giant planet, wandering aimlessly until it stumbled into our neighbourhood. Borisov was like the shy cousin who shows up at a party and immediately reminds you of someone familiar. Still foreign, still exotic, but with enough in common to make you nod and say, "Okay, we know your type." Now, Atlas takes the third seat at the cosmic dinner table. 3 interstellar objects in less than a decade. Before ʻOumuamua, none had been confirmed, and now suddenly the universe seems to be tossing them our way like it's raining breadcrumbs from other solar systems. You picture space not as empty, but as sprinkled with wandering relics, frozen shards of worlds that formed, broke apart, and drifted loose. It makes you wonder how many have passed through unnoticed, how many flickered faintly against the stars, too small for our telescopes to notice, too fast to capture. In ancient China, comet sightings were carefully recorded on bamboo slips and silk scrolls. Each one was considered an omen, a sign of dynastic change or natural disaster. Imagine how their astronomers standing on stone platforms might have reacted to Atlas streaking across the heavens. They probably would have declared it proof the gods were sending messages from another realm. Today, instead of priests and kings trembling under its glow, we've got grad students running simulations and fighting over telescope time. Progress, but with about the same amount of sleep deprivation. The quirky part is that Atlas doesn't arrive alone in your imagination. It drags along its new membership card in the Interstellar Wanderers Club. You imagine a tiny support group forming. ʻOumuamua standing in the corner, sulky and misunderstood, Borisov politely waving its ion tail, and now Atlas stumbling in, dusty and wide-eyed, asking, "So, what exactly happens at these meetings?" But beneath the jokes, a sobering thought lingers. Every one of these objects is proof that other star systems form comets, asteroids, and debris, just like ours. The galaxy is littered with leftovers, and while we track just 3, there are certainly countless more weaving unseen between stars. Somewhere right now, another frozen shard is on its way, its path destined to brush our skies decades or centuries from tonight. The scale of their journeys is hard to wrap your head around. Atlas may have travelled millions, even billions of years before wandering into our solar system. In all that time, it never once felt warmth, never saw a sunrise, just endless black cosmic rays carving scars into its surface, atoms of ice vibrating faintly in silence. You picture Atlas finally catching the glow of our sun for the first time in eons, like a lost traveller glimpsing a campfire in the distance. You float alongside it, hearing nothing but the hum of your fan back on Earth. And slowly, gently, the image of this interstellar caravan, ʻOumuamua, Borisov, and now Atlas, settles in your mind like constellations on an inner sky. You let your eyelids fall halfway, comforted by the thought that even in the vast loneliness of the galaxy, objects like Atlas prove we're never entirely without company. You trail after Atlas, watching its faint shimmer against the dark, and your mind drifts toward its name. 3i/Atlas. It sounds official, clipped, and strangely bureaucratic for something that has drifted between stars for eons. The 3i is the giveaway, the third interstellar object confirmed by astronomers. Before it, there was 1i/Oumuamua and 2i/Borisov, simple, sequential, a cosmic roll call. Atlas didn't get to choose its name, though if it could, maybe it would have picked something a little more dramatic like Shard of Forgotten Suns or Ice Cube of Doom. Instead, humans assigned it letters and numbers, like labeling a file folder. The Atlas part is friendlier, almost mythic. It comes from the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, or ATLAS for short, the survey project based in Hawaii that spotted the object. Yes, you heard that right. This traveller is named after the telescope network designed to catch asteroids before they smack into Earth. Sort of like being named after the bouncer who first noticed you sneaking into the club. You float closer, imagining the astronomers who first noticed its movement across their CCD images. Night after night, it shifted slightly against the background stars, not behaving like a local comet or asteroid. That's when the math began, the orbital calculations that revealed the truth. Hyperbolic trajectory incoming from beyond the Sun's family, never to return. The kind of discovery that makes an astronomer sit back, rub their eyes and mutter, "No way!" again. Historians still argue whether the ancient Greek Titan Atlas really carried the heavens on his shoulders, or if later storytellers embellished the myth. Either way, the name fits. This little comet shoulders the weight of mystery from an entire alien star system. It carries secrets locked in its frozen skin, secrets about how other worlds form and how easily they shed their debris into the void. You let your gaze wander over its imagined surface, dark, cratered, mottled with patches of ice that gleam faintly in sunlight. The name Atlas feels heavy, noble, almost too big for this fragile speck. But names are how humans make sense of the universe. Without them, everything would be just anonymous dots drifting in silence. Names are also how we tell stories, and let's be honest, 3I/2025 QX4 doesn't exactly spark bedtime wonder. Atlas it is. You recall a quirky tidbit from history. In the 17th century, comet discoverers often raced to have their names attached to these icy wanderers. It was astronomy's version of social media clout. Imagine the arguments. No, I saw it first, your telescope just confirmed it. Today the rules are stricter, more standardized, but the spirit is the same. There's still that quiet thrill in knowing your observatory gets credit for spotting something that has crossed light years just to drift past your dome. As you drift alongside Atlas in this imagined scene, you sense the faint irony. It doesn't know we've named it. It doesn't know it's famous. It simply falls, guided by the sun's gravity, shedding grains of dust one by one. You smile at the thought that somewhere right now a graduate student is probably cursing their slow internet connection as they try to download data on this very object. The cosmos doesn't wait for Wi-Fi speeds. The act of naming gives Atlas a kind of companionship, a place in our catalogue of the known. Without it, it would just be a silent streak of light, missed by all but a few. With it, Atlas is a story, a chapter in the growing saga of interstellar visitors, and you, drifting here in this dreamlike narration, are part of that story too. The comet carries you along, not in body, but in imagination, stitching your drowsy thoughts to its endless path toward the sun. You drift further back in time, imagining Atlas before it ever had a name, before it ever brushed near the warmth of our sun. Out there in the interstellar dark, it was just another frozen wanderer, drifting silently through a wilderness of stars. No one saw it, no one measured it, only the slow ticking of galactic years. The cold was absolute, atoms barely stirred, and its ices were locked tight, preserved like a fossil of cosmic childhood. Picture it floating through the galactic night, orbiting nothing, tethered to no star. The background is a tapestry of light, the Milky Way's broad smear stretching forever. It might have once circled a young star long ago, nudged by a passing giant planet or a nearby stellar encounter. One violent gravitational handshake and suddenly it was flung outward, ejected into interstellar exile. Historians still argue whether these objects are more common than stars themselves, drifting in the trillions across our galaxy, or whether we've just been lucky enough to spot a few rare examples. Either way, Atlas was destined for a solitary voyage, one where the only soundtrack was silence. You imagine the texture of its surface in that endless cold, dust and rock coated in ancient frost, crust hard as iron. Cosmic rays zapped it, carving tiny chemical scars. Over millions of years, a veneer of dark carbon soot formed, muting any shine. Atlas became the opposite of a glittering snowball. It looked more like a lump of coal lost in a cave. A quirky tidbit: early astronomers in the 19th century believed comets were glowing on their own, like lanterns in the sky, rather than reflecting sunlight. If only they knew the truth, that in deep outer space, a comet like Atlas is as black as asphalt until a star brushes it awake. You feel the weight of that cold as though it presses on your shoulders. The kind of chill that doesn't just numb your skin, but seeps into thought, slowing it, stretching time. Centuries pass like minutes. Atlas doesn't care. It just floats, a relic carrying a chemistry set from another planetary nursery. At times, you imagine other interstellar travelers brushing past it, unseen, their paths crossing in the dark like ships on an unlit ocean. Maybe a rogue planet wanders near, maybe a cluster of dust clouds swirls past. Atlas doesn't notice, it just keeps going, one frozen heartbeat at a time. The oddity is that this frozen vagabond had no reason to survive. It could have collided with a star, been shredded by a gas giant, or dissolved in the ultraviolet wash of some massive sun. But it didn't. It endured. Against absurd odds, it coasted through billions of kilometers, only to find itself drifting into our sun's pull. Like a message in a bottle, forgotten for ages, finally washing up on a distant shore. You let the scene sink in, the quiet enormity of deep space, the comet waiting patiently for its brief spark of life. You can almost hear the hush of it, a silence so complete that your own thoughts feel loud by comparison. This is where Atlas has been, and now you are floating with it, your breathing steady, your body sinking into stillness as if you too have been waiting all this time to fall into the light. Now you watch as the quiet exile begins to end. Atlas, after eons in darkness, crosses the invisible boundary where the sun's gravity whispers louder than the pull of distant stars. Slowly at first, then with mounting urgency, the comet falls inward, tugged like a bead sliding along a string. This is its capture, not a prison, but a temporary embrace, a gravitational handshake that bends its course toward the inner system. You feel the tug too, like a gentle pull on your chest, as if the sun is reeling both you and Atlas closer. It's a strange kind of homecoming. The comet doesn't belong here, and yet the sun treats it like any other wayward child. The rules are universal. Get too close and you accelerate. You recall Newton's law, that gravity isn't so much a force as it is a constant invitation to fall. Atlas accepts, plunging on a hyperbolic track that will never close into an orbit. It's a visitor, not a resident, destined to pass through only once. Historians still argue whether early Greek philosophers truly understood gravity, or if they merely described falling bodies without connecting the dots to the stars. Either way, Atlas demonstrates the principle perfectly. What goes past the sun is bent by it, reshaped by its pull. The comet's velocity builds, and you imagine standing on its surface, feeling the invisible acceleration under your feet. No wind, no sound, just the faint awareness that each second carries you faster toward a blaze of light. The quirky part is that this kind of capture isn't rare. Our solar system constantly tugs at stray objects, asteroids from the Kuiper Belt, dust from the Oort cloud, even the occasional interstellar pebble. Most are too small to notice, but every so often one like Atlas slips into view. It's like spotting a single moth circling a porch light, knowing thousands more are hidden in the night. You picture the sun growing larger from the comet's perspective, a pale coin swelling into a fiery disk. Radiation starts to matter now, its photons rattling against the comet's dust grains, nudging them like invisible fingers. Slowly the coma begins to stir, a faint fuzzy halo of gas forming as sunlight warms the outer layers. Atlas is waking up. There's something poetic in its fall. For billions of years it coasted in numb stillness, and now, as it surrenders to the sun's call, it transforms. Still tiny compared to planets or moons, but luminous in a way it never was before. You can imagine ancient civilizations watching comets and whispering that they were souls of the dead returning to Earth. If they had known this one's true story, that it wasn't born here at all, they might have thought of it as an outsider spirit, a messenger from beyond the known heavens. You float beside it, watching the spiral of its descent. The sun's light is steady, but the stars beyond begin to blur with motion. You feel lulled by the inevitability of it all. No brakes, no hesitation, just the calm certainty of a body obeying physics older than memory. The more you watch, the heavier your limbs feel, as if you too are succumbing to that ancient invitation. To fall into the light, peacefully, endlessly, until you too glow. Atlas drifts closer, and for the first time in eons, its surface begins to stir. What was once a frozen vault of silence starts to twitch and crack. Imagine standing on its black crust. The sun, still far away but brighter now than ever before, beats down with the relentless photons. The ice beneath your feet, trapped for untold ages, begins to loosen. Molecules warm, jitter, and break free. The comet exhales in thin, invisible puffs, like a sleeper stirring after a very long nap. At first, it's subtle. Tiny vents of carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide seeping through fissures. Then louder, more dramatic eruptions of water vapour and dust. You hear the faint hiss in your imagination, a whispering release as Atlas starts to develop a coma, that glowing cloud that will soon halo its nucleus. It's not violent, not yet, but you sense the tension. The crust is brittle, stress builds. A crack snakes across the surface with a soundless shiver. If you were foolish enough to stand here, your boots would feel the tremor beneath you. Historians still argue whether the ancient Babylonians actually understood that comets were physical objects, or if they only considered them divine smudges written across the sky. What you see now would have blown their minds, a dirty snowball literally hissing and spitting as sunlight teases life out of its frozen body. The transformation is visible, undeniable. A quirky tidbit, In the 2nd century, the philosopher Seneca wrote that comets might someday be understood as natural phenomena, predictable and lawful like planets. At the time, people laughed. Comets were too chaotic, too ominous, and yet here you are, watching Atlas behave exactly as physics predicts. Chaotic only in detail, but faithful to the same rules as everything else under the sun. Jets of gas shoot outward in geysers, carrying dust grains with them. Some spray off at strange angles, twisting like ghostly fountains. The surface darkens further, where sublimation eats away the ice, leaving pockets of rubble and pits. If you could hold out your hand here, grains of ancient dust would stick to your glove, dust that once orbited another star long before our sun was born. You resist the urge to pocket some. It would be like stealing ash from another universe's fire. The more Atlas warms, the more dramatic it becomes. The coma swells, sunlight scattering through it to form a faint haze. The nucleus hides behind its own exhalations, a body cloaked in its own breath. It's messy, unpredictable, and beautiful. Ooh. You realise that comets aren't just icy rocks. There are performers, each one a pyrotechnic show as it skates closer to the star. For a fleeting moment, you imagine the comet whispering, not with words but with gas and dust. A language older than planets, older than us. A long sigh. I was cold, I was waiting. Now I burn. And as you float nearby, your own breathing falls into rhythm with that exhalation. In, out. In, out. Your chest rises softly. Your eyelids feel heavier. And the hiss of Atlas's vents becomes the quietest lullaby. A cosmic shush that tells you it's all right to drift with it into warmth, into release, into rest. The changes gather momentum now. Atlas, wrapped in its swelling coma, begins to trail the most iconic symbol of a comet, its tails, not one but two. You float back a little to take in the full scene, and it feels like watching an artist's brush drag glowing paint across the canvas of space. The first tail is dusty, built from grains and pebbles shaken free by those jets you watched erupt earlier. Sunlight pushes against them with gentle pressure, nudging them into a broad curved arc behind the comet's path. It looks golden, almost smoky, a trail of starlight caught in slow motion. This is the part that would shimmer for the naked eye, the streak ancient skywatchers feared. The second tail, thinner and more ethereal, is made of ionized gas. Solar wind sweeps it straight back, a narrow electric blue beam that seems to point directly away from the sun. Together they stretch for millions of kilometers, banners that announce Atlas to the solar system whether it wants attention or not. Historians still argue whether the Roman poet Virgil, when writing about burning stars trailing hair, was describing actual comet tails or just poetic embellishment. Either way, what you see here would have confirmed his imagery perfectly. Comets don't just appear, they perform, trailing luminous strands of themselves like celestial capes. A quirky note, tails can be so vast that Earth has occasionally drifted through them. In 1910, when Halley's Comet passed, newspapers ran the headlines warning that poisonous gases in its tail might suffocate the planet. People bought comet pills and bottled air just in case. Of course, nothing happened, except for some great sales pitches. If Atlas were close enough, you probably see a modern repeat, ads promising 100% organic interstellar tail filters. From your vantage point, though, the view is tranquil. You hover in silence, watching grains scatter like embers drifting behind a campfire. The dust tail curves gracefully, like a brushstroke in gold ink. The ion tail, sharper and bluer, slices into the dark like a sword made of mist. Two completely different forces, sunlight and solar wind, shaping the comet's identity in tandem. And the tails aren't just pretty, they're evidence. Each particle of dust carries chemistry from Atlas's birthplace, material formed around another star, preserved through unimaginable cold. Every faint streak is a breadcrumb from a different cosmic kitchen. You imagine scientists hunched over spectrometers, squinting at the faint fingerprints of molecules drifting off Atlas. Somewhere in those lines might be amino acids, hydrocarbons, even hints of the chemistry that sparks life. But out here, floating in the hush, there's no laboratory. There's just you, the comet, and its luminous veils stretching into infinity. The tails ripple slightly as solar wind gusts, as if the comet is waving hello, or maybe goodbye. You let the sight wash over you, eyes following the delicate arcs until they dissolve into darkness. And as your gaze softens, you feel your own thoughts trailing behind you like dust, curling away in slow, graceful spirals. Just as Atlas can't help but shed its material, you can't help but release the day, grain by grain, drifting weightless into the comfort of night. Now the spotlight shifts from Atlas itself to the eyes watching it. Down on Earth, the comet has become a target for every lens that can possibly turn skyward. Observatories in Hawaii, Chile, and the Canary Islands all angle their mirrors to catch the faint flicker. Even space-based sentinels, telescopes orbiting above Earth's atmosphere, begin logging exposure after exposure, each one a snapshot of Atlas's shimmering coma and newborn tails. You picture a group of astronomers huddled in a control room, mugs of cold coffee scattered on desks, staring at screens filled with streaked stars. Somewhere in that noisy data, Atlas's position shifts just enough to betray its motion. A thrill runs through them. It's like catching sight of a firefly in a field and knowing it's travelled across light years to flicker for you, and then the real work begins. Calculating trajectories, brightness curves, outgassing rates, all the numbers that squeeze wonder into neat columns. Historians still argue whether Galileo ever truly glimpsed comets through his telescope, or if his crude optics misled him. What is certain is that comets were once the great mystery of the sky, half science, half superstition. Today, with CCD cameras and digital filters, astronomers peel them apart in wavelengths invisible to the naked eye. Infrared, ultraviolet, even radio frequencies all turn toward a chunk of ice that never asked to be famous. A quirky detail floats into your mind. Modern telescopes are so sensitive that they sometimes record birds, planes, even bugs as streaks of light across their images. Somewhere out there, a grad student probably cursed the night they mistook a mosquito for a comet fragment. The universe has a sense of humour. Meanwhile, Atlas sails on, oblivious. Its tails grow longer, its coma brighter, and telescopes keep firing data back to Earth. Astronomers compare notes, publishing preprints in frantic excitement. The more they look, the more questions pile up. Is it breaking apart? Will it survive perihelion? What hidden molecules lie in its exhaust? Every answer opens 3 new mysteries. You float above Earth now in your imagination, looking down at the planet sprinkled with glowing domes and antennae. Each one is awake, pointed outward, chasing this interstellar guest. The sight is oddly comforting. Across cultures, languages, and continents, people unite for the simple act of staring at a comet. They may argue later about the details, but in the moment, they're all watching the same spark cross the same sky. And you, drifting with Atlas, sense that connection too. The hum of those observatories becomes a faint lull in your mind, a chorus of human curiosity singing to the same silent traveller you're floating beside. Their eyes catch its light, your mind drifts with its path, and together you form a quiet bond that stretches from cold stone mountaintops to the depths of interstellar dark. Your breathing slows as you picture those telescopes blinking open and closed, like giant metal eyelids keeping watch while you rest. They'll keep following Atlas all night, so you don't have to. You can let go, ease deeper into stillness, knowing the comet is never unobserved, never alone. The sight of Atlas glowing in the night sky inevitably stirs memories of how people once reacted to such apparitions. Long before telescopes and orbital mechanics, comets were painted as omens, harbingers of doom, or fiery messengers from the gods. You imagine standing in an ancient field, torchlight flickering on stone walls, while villagers crane their necks toward the heavens. There it is, a streak across the stars, shimmering like a wound in the sky. No one knows what it is, but everyone feels it must mean something. In China, careful records were kept of these broom stars, their appearances logged alongside floods, famines, and dynastic changes. A comet might spell the end of an emperor's reign or the start of a new era. To see one was to sense the universe rearranging itself. Over in medieval Europe, the sight could bring sheer terror. Historians still argue whether the fiery streak embroidered on the Bayeux tapestry truly depicts Halley's comet of 1066, or whether it was simply an artistic flourish. But imagine how it must have looked to those embroiderers. A glowing sign hung above the battlefield, a cosmic commentary stitched into the very fabric of war. A quirky tidbit drifts into your thoughts. In the late Middle Ages, people believed that comets gave off poisonous vapours. Some even carried protective charms or covered wells to prevent contamination. If Atlas had appeared back then, the local apothecary would have sold anti-comet tonics at an outrageous markup, probably flavoured with mint to make it go down easier. Humans never waste a good panic, yet comets didn't only frighten, they inspired. Artists painted them into manuscripts, poets wrote verses about their fiery hair, and prophets saw them as evidence of divine communication. Every culture looked upward and found its own reflection in these sudden visitors. Where science now sees dust and gas, they saw fate and destiny. You float alongside Atlas and try to merge those perspectives. On one hand, you know the physics, sublimating ice, solar radiation, orbital dynamics. On the other, you can't help but feel the weight of history pressing on this glowing traveller. It's easy to see why our ancestors felt humbled, even shaken. Imagine no electric lights, no traffic, just a quiet village sky where stars blaze like torches. Then suddenly, a streak appears that wasn't there the night before, stretching across the heavens like a banner of fire. You'd probably whisper too. The comet glows steadily now in your vision, tails trailing behind like ceremonial robes. It doesn't ask for attention, yet it commands it. Ancient or modern, frightened or fascinated, humans have always stopped what they're doing to look up. And as you breathe quietly in rhythm with the comet's imagined exhalations, you realise you're part of that lineage. Tonight, in this drowsy space between waking and sleep, you're another witness in the chain of countless sky watchers, all staring upward in awe at a fragment of ice that refuses to be ignored. Atlas glimmers faintly ahead of you, its coma swelling, its tails stretching wider. If you could scoop a fragment from its surface, hold it up to the light, you'd be examining a recipe written in chemistry rather than words. These interstellar visitors carry locked within them the frozen leftovers of another planetary nursery. Water ice, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, perhaps even complex organics. Each molecule is a clue, a fingerprint of the star system that birthed it. You imagine the laboratory instruments on Earth already humming, eager for the spectra. Astronomers split the comet's light into thin bands, searching for absorption lines. A faint dip here, a spike there, evidence of hydrocarbons, maybe even amino acids. If Atlas carries these building blocks, then it's not just a comet, it's a courier of life's potential. Historians still argue whether Earth's oceans and organics were seeded by comets billions of years ago, or whether life's chemistry brewed entirely in situ. Atlas doesn't answer directly, but it brings another data point, another subtle sample in the debate. There's something whimsical about it too. Imagine a pebble from another kitchen drifting into yours, carrying a pinch of salt or spice you've never tasted. Atlas may hold flavours unknown to our solar system, alien, but strangely familiar since chemistry is the universal cookbook. Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, they dance the same everywhere, but the ratios, the seasoning, those are what make each system unique. A quirky tidbit. In the 1980s, when scientists first detected organic molecules in comets, some tabloids ran the headlines claiming space, snowballs full of life. One even joked that comets might hatch into alien creatures if they warmed up. While no one seriously expects Atlas to sprout legs, the molecules it carries are genuinely precious, tiny threads that weave through cosmic biology. You drift closer, peering into the hazy glow of its coma. Each wisp of gas is a sampling of its hidden interior. Material untouched since its star system's infancy is now being thrown into space, offered freely to any telescope or dreamer willing to catch it. The thought makes you feel oddly privileged, as though the universe is letting you peek into its childhood scrapbook. Atlas doesn't explain itself, of course. It simply exhales, shedding dust and vapour as the sun's warmth seeps deeper. Yet you can't help but personify it, a traveller carrying stories, leaving breadcrumbs of its journey. You imagine running your hand through its streaming tail and catching grains that once circled another sun, billions of years before humanity even existed. A silent gift, scattered with every breath. Your breathing slows again, syncing with that rhythm, inhale, exhale, like the comet itself. Each outgassing jet becomes a sigh, each dust grain a dream drifting free. You close your eyes halfway and let yourself drift with it, not worrying about whether Atlas holds the seeds of life or just frozen stone. Tonight, it is enough to float beside it, to witness its shimmering chemistry in the hush of space. Atlas drifts onward, glowing brighter. But even now, No one can fully agree on what it really is. From a distance, sure, it looks like a comet, fuzzy halo, tails stretching into space, jets venting gas. But astronomers are famously stubborn creatures, and categories matter to them. Some argue that Atlas might not be a typical comet at all. Maybe it's a fragment of something larger, a shard broken off a parent body in another system, still carrying echoes of that ancient violence. Others whisper, half seriously, that perhaps it's not even icy enough to qualify, more asteroid than comet, masquerading behind a thin veil of dust. Historians still argue whether even Halley's comet was truly understood in its own time. Edmund Halley himself in 1705 shocked the world by predicting its return. Before that, each appearance was thought to be a completely new object. The lesson was clear: comets defy easy labels until you really know their paths. Atlas, hurtling in on a one-time visit, offers no such luxury. We won't get a second chance to see if it comes back. It won't. Its orbit is hyperbolic, and once it rounds the Sun, it's gone forever. A quirky tidbit: some fringe theories have suggested that interstellar comets could be fragments of rogue planets, even slivers of shattered moons. Imagine Atlas as a chipped-off piece of alien crust, a literal rock from another world stripped bare and wandering through the void. It's not the mainstream view, but it makes your mind spin with possibilities. You picture standing on a lost planet under an alien sky, then suddenly the ground beneath you cracking, hurling part of itself into space. Millions of years later, that same shard drifts past Earth, carrying whispers of its origin. The debates among scientists grow heated. Is Atlas a fragile snowball that will disintegrate before reaching perihelion? Or a dense, stubborn survivor that will blaze past the Sun intact? Each telescope reading feeds speculation, but no single consensus emerges. Science thrives on this push and pull, this dance of uncertainty, and you, floating beside the comet, sense that it doesn't care how it's labelled. It simply is, existing in defiance of categories, shrugging at human attempts to box it neatly. You drift closer to its nucleus in your imagination. Jagged cliffs of dark ice rise and fall, vents sputtering like slow-motion geysers. If you press your hand against its surface, it feels both solid and brittle, like something that could crumble if you tapped it too hard. Is this a true comet? An interstellar asteroid? A fragment of something bigger? In the end, it hardly matters. What matters is that it's here, now, letting itself be seen before vanishing back into the abyss. The thought relaxes you. Not everything needs to be decided, not everything needs a permanent label. Some things, like Atlas, are allowed to stay mysterious. You let the comet's uncertainty seep into your thoughts, softening your own need for answers. Labels blur, categories fade, and what remains is simply the beauty of watching a glowing traveller pass by. Atlas sails inward, luminous and fragile, and you let your mind wander to a more unsettling thought. What if its path had been just a little different? A fraction of a degree in trajectory, and instead of a harmless flyby, it could have brushed dangerously close to a planet. You picture Earth hanging below, blue and green and blissfully unaware, while Atlas barrels in at tens of kilometers per second. Even a relatively small fragment could unleash energy greater than all of humanity's weapons combined. You probably wouldn't survive this ride, but that's the charm of imagining from a safe pillow, isn't it? Historians still argue whether the Tunguska event of 1908, when a blast flattened thousands of square kilometers of Siberian forest, was caused by a cometary fragment or an asteroid. The evidence tilts back and forth like a cosmic seesaw. Atlas isn't on a collision course, but you can't help picturing what might have happened if it had crossed orbits with Earth. A flash in the atmosphere, a shockwave circling the globe, ancient dust raining down. Somewhere in that chaos, fragments carrying alien chemistry might have mingled with our oceans and soils, seeding not just destruction, but possibility. A quirky detail tickles your imagination. In the 18th century, some scientists feared that Earth passing through a comet's tail could ignite the atmosphere, setting the whole sky on fire. Obviously, we know better now, but the image is wild. Atlas swooping past, and suddenly the heavens themselves ablaze like a giant bonfire. Thankfully, our atmosphere doesn't combust that easily. You can almost hear the sigh of relief from every living thing. In this dreamlike vision, you tilt your head and imagine alternative histories. What if Atlas had curved just right and become a second moon, captured into orbit instead of fleeing back to the void? Humanity would grow up with two companions in the night sky, one steady, one ghostly and changeable. Myths, calendars, and poetry would all look different. Maybe the word lunatic would have a comet cousin, Atlassic, to describe those touched by its pale glow. But reality is calmer. Atlas misses every world by vast distances. Its path is spectacular but safe. Earth's observers sigh with relief, though perhaps a tiny part of them wishes for a closer pass, one that would paint the sky in luminous fire visible to every eye on the planet. You, floating alongside, feel both comforted and slightly wistful. Catastrophe avoided, but spectacle diminished. As the comet rushes past, you exhale with it, letting go of the tension those thoughts stirred. The what-ifs fade, replaced by the steady certainty of its real path. A swoop inward, a fiery performance, and then a graceful exit. You settle into that inevitability, comforted by the knowledge that while the cosmos holds chaos, tonight offers only the safe beauty of watching it unfold. Atlas glows brighter still, its tails stretched like ribbons across the sky, and your mind drifts from danger to origin. What makes this fragment so fascinating isn't just where it's going, but where it came from. Beneath the jets, beneath the dusty halo, Atlas carries the preserved echoes of its birth. Its nucleus is a time capsule, a frozen record of a planetary system's earliest days. You imagine that long ago, around a star you'll never see, a disk of gas and dust swirled. Tiny grains clumped together, snowflakes of rock and ice colliding in the star's faint light. Some grew into planets, sculpted into orbits. Others, like Atlas, were exiled, scattered outward by gravitational shoves. It was never chosen to be a world. Instead, it became a fragment, a leftover, a frozen bead flung into the dark. Yet in its chemistry lies the story of that ancient nursery. Historians still argue whether the Oort cloud at the edge of our own system is a graveyard of such fragments, or a bustling archive of preserved beginnings. Either way, comets represent deep time, carrying secrets untouched since the dawn of stars. Atlas, being interstellar, adds another chapter, the galactic archive. It is a messenger from beyond, whispering, "This is how worlds form everywhere, not just here." A quirky thought sneaks in. Medieval scholars once suggested that comets were exhalations of the heavens, belches of a universe with indigestion. Not the worst metaphor, considering Atlas really does vent gas as it warms, but imagine telling those scholars the truth, that each puff is ancient starlight chemistry, preserved since before humans even learned to walk upright. You drift closer in your vision, as if pressing your hand against the comet's cold surface. Beneath your palm lies dust older than Earth itself. Some molecules may have formed in interstellar clouds before Atlas's parent star was born. To touch it would be to touch a piece of galactic memory. You feel the weight of that, and at the same time, the serenity. This comet doesn't rush. It drifts, patient, carrying its record across unimaginable time until someone finally takes notice. You exhale slowly, sinking deeper into stillness, as though your own body is becoming a capsule too, preserving the day's memories before releasing them to rest. Atlas reminds you that survival is its own story, that sometimes simply existing long enough is enough to carry meaning. The comet presses onward, but in this soft moment, you linger with its echoes of creation, letting their ancient calm seep into you. Atlas glides onward, and you feel the weight of human imagination stretching out behind it. Every culture that ever saw a comet found a way to weave it into story. Tonight, drifting beside this interstellar wanderer, you can almost hear those old voices layering myth upon myth, trying to explain the sudden light in the sky. In ancient China, comets were broom stars, sweeping across the heavens to clean away dynasties. In Japan, they were hukiboshi, stars with tails, sometimes portents of disaster, sometimes guides of change. The Maya saw them as fiery serpents twisting through the firmament, sky beasts whose movements foretold shifts in power. You picture Atlas in that role now, its twin tails writhing like dragons, its glowing head a burning eye against the night. Historians still argue whether the blazing star recorded in English chronicles before the Norman invasion was Halley's Comet, or whether storytellers retrofitted the omen after the fact. Either way, those chroniclers stitched the comet into their narrative, a celestial footnote to battles and kings. Atlas, though it doesn't linger long, would have earned its place too. One glimpse and entire mythologies might have reshaped themselves around it. a quirky tidbit drifts in. In 1577, when Tycho Brahe charted a comet's path, he disproved the old belief that comets were atmospheric phenomena. Before him, some people literally thought comets were sparks flickering in the upper air, like fireflies in a dome. Imagine the disappointment when they realised these glowing visitors weren't mystical weather at all, but distant, massive bodies streaking through space. Of course, the wonder didn't fade, it just transformed into curiosity. You picture firesides where storytellers spun comet tales into epics, gods brandishing flaming swords, lovers separated across the heavens, demons shaking their fiery manes. In some cultures, comets were good luck, heralds of harvest or fertility. In others, they were death's lanterns, summoning plague or famine. The same streak could terrify one village and comfort another, proof that interpretation often says more about us than about the sky. Now, hovering beside Atlas in your quiet vision, you see it as all of these at once. A broom, a dragon, a sword, a sign. It doesn't choose what meaning humans assign, it only passes by indifferent, while stories swirl in its wake. You feel a softness in that realization. Meaning is not fixed, but woven, and you too can choose what this comet means for you tonight. So you let Atlas be a gentle sign, not of disaster or change, but of rest. Its luminous tails sweep the clutter from your thoughts. Its glowing head stands watch like a lantern outside your dreams. And as you drift deeper into stillness, you carry with you not fear but comfort. Another mythology, written just for your quiet night. Atlas gleams faintly ahead, but now your focus shifts back to Earth. Not to myths this time, but to the digital eyes that made its discovery possible. Once upon a time, comets were caught only by accident, by stargazers peering through crude lenses, or even by the naked eye. Today, the cosmos is constantly scanned by robotic surveys, wide-field cameras mounted on mountaintops, sweeping the heavens night after night with machine precision. Atlas owes its name to one of these, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System in Hawaii. You picture the system's twin telescopes swiveling silently beneath the Milky Way, snapping images of thousands of stars at once. Software combs through the pictures, flagging anything that moves. A rock, a satellite, a bug crawling across the dome. Most blips are nothing special, but sometimes, just sometimes, the algorithm catches something with a path that doesn't fit. Atlas was one of those rare finds, pulled from a sea of false alarms. Historians still argue whether Charles Messier, the comet-hunting French astronomer of the 18th century, would have loved or hated such automation. He spent sleepless nights chasing faint smudges through a telescope, carefully recording their positions. Would he feel robbed by a computer doing the work in seconds, or thrilled that humanity's reach had stretched so far? Either way, Atlas's discovery would have blown his powdered wig straight off. A quirky tidbit. Some surveys now use artificial intelligence to sift through terabytes of sky data. One AI even mistook a streak of cosmic ray interference for a new asteroid, briefly exciting astronomers before the error was caught. Machines may be sharp-eyed, but they're not immune to the universe's pranks. You float above Earth in your mind, watching the globe spin beneath a net of observatories. From Chile's Atacama Desert to the Canary Islands, from Arizona's hills to orbiting satellites, humanity's eyes never really close. The sky is under constant surveillance, a nightly watch that stitches together fragments of data into something like a living map. It's oddly soothing to realize that as you rest, countless lenses are awake, keeping vigil. Atlas itself, far away, is just one target among thousands, yet for now it holds the spotlight. Its interstellar origin makes it precious, rare, almost legendary. Scientists scramble to capture every photon before it slips away forever. You imagine the hum of servers storing its images, the chatter of researchers trading notes across time zones, a global web woven around one lonely traveller. And here you are, drifting with Atlas in imagination, but tethered to that same network of watchful eyes. It makes you feel less alone. The comet is seen, measured, cared for in the way humans know best, with data. You let that comfort settle in, like knowing someone is still awake downstairs, keeping an eye on things while you drift off to sleep. Atlas races inward, closer to the sun, and the question on every astronomer's lips is simple: will it make it? Survival isn't guaranteed for comets. They're fragile, porous, stitched together like cosmic snow cones. A little too much heat, and they fragment into glittering dust clouds. Atlas, already venting vigorously, may or may not withstand the fiery embrace of perihelion, the closest point in its swing around the sun. From your dreamlike vantage, you imagine the comet groaning under the stress. Cracks spider across its crust, vents sputter harder, chunks tumble loose and drift away. It's like watching a fragile sculpture melting under a spotlight. If Atlas breaks, it will dissolve into a fading smear of dust, remembered only in charts and data files. Yet if it holds together, it may blaze into a spectacle, tails expanding so wide that even casual stargazers will notice. Historians still argue whether the Great Comet of 1843 was a single object or the last surviving piece of a much larger comet shattered long before. Its tail stretched across half the sky, dazzling millions, and left scientists debating fragments versus wholes. Atlas now joins that lineage of uncertainty. Will it be a grand display or a quiet disappearance? A quirky tidbit. When Comet Eisen approached the Sun in 2013, news outlets dubbed it the Comet of the Century. Astronomers held their breath, only to watch it disintegrate at perihelion, leaving almost nothing behind. For a week afterward, the disappointed sighs of comet watchers echoed louder than the comet's ghost. Atlas, some fear, might pull the same trick. From here, though, the drama feels softer. You watch it tumble forward, tails streaming, its fate undecided but inevitable. Whether it blazes or vanishes, it will have still carried its story this far, still brushed our skies with starlight from elsewhere. You float closer, running a hand across its surface in imagination. The ice beneath your touch vibrates faintly, as though humming under strain. It's fragile, yes, but even fragility has power. A comet that crumbles still scatters its material, sharing its chemistry with space, leaving whispers for future travellers. Survival isn't the only form of legacy. As you exhale, you feel the same release. Some things last, some things fall apart, and both are part of the story. Whether Atlas survives perihelion or dissolves into dust, it has already given enough. Wonder, debate, and a fleeting chance to imagine. You let that realization soften your thoughts, carrying you gently like the comet itself toward whatever comes next. You drift just behind Atlas, watching its tails ripple and your thoughts stretch beyond this single visitor. If 3 interstellar wanderers have already been spotted in less than a decade, ʻOumuamua, Borisov, and now Atlas, then surely there are more. The galaxy must be swarming with these lonely fragments, invisible most of the time, slipping quietly between stars. You imagine them like dandelion seeds carried on a universal wind, billions of tiny travellers drifting endlessly, only rarely brushing close enough for us to notice. Historians still argue whether our solar system has already been visited by countless such objects in the past. Their trails unnoticed by ancient skywatchers. Without telescopes, without computers, a faint smudge moving too fast would have gone unrecorded, swallowed by myth or mist entirely. Maybe Earth has been bathed in interstellar dust before, the evidence locked away in sediments and ice cores, waiting for someone to find it. A quirky tidbit pops up. Astronomers estimate there may be more rogue comets and asteroids drifting between stars than there are stars themselves. Think about that. Dark debris outnumbering suns like cosmic crumbs littering the galaxy. Somewhere out there, whole rivers of these fragments flow unseen, survivors of planetary formation gone messy. Some are no bigger than pebbles, others as massive as mountains, all slipping silently through the void. You picture a hidden caravan moving through the night. Dozens of comets like Atlas, invisible but nearby, each carrying chemistry from a different star system. Some will never be noticed, their paths missing our telescopes by chance. Others may be heading inward right now, years or decades away from discovery. It's comforting in a strange way, knowing that the universe is not empty but full of travellers, most of them anonymous. Floating beside Atlas, you feel it's less alone now. You sense its unseen siblings scattered across the dark fellow wanderers on similar paths. It becomes easier to imagine that every star you see at night has lost its own comets to interstellar exile. The galaxy is full of orphans, and every once in a while one crosses our doorstep. Your breathing slows with that thought. You don't have to chase them all. It's enough to know they're out there, drifting, proof that the cosmos is alive with movement even when you can't see it. You exhale softly, as if joining their silent migration, your own thoughts scattering like faint dust among the stars. Atlas drifts ahead, glowing faintly against the black, and your mind pulls back, zooming out from this single comet to the bigger picture. What does an object like this really teach us? It isn't just spectacle, it's evidence, a cosmic data point that rewrites what we thought we knew. Every interstellar visitor is a reminder that planetary systems everywhere are messy, shedding fragments like children dropping toys. By studying Atlas, scientists glimpse the chemistry of a system far beyond our sun. Does its ice resemble the comets of our own Oort cloud, or does it hold exotic ratios? More carbon monoxide here, less water there, a different cocktail altogether? If it matches, that suggests comets across the galaxy form under similar rules. If it differs, it shows us the diversity of creation. Either way, it widens our view. Historians still argue whether Copernicus truly appreciated the full radicalism of his heliocentric model. He dethroned Earth, yes, but perhaps didn't fully grasp how ordinary our system might be. Atlas drives that lesson home. We are not unique. Other stars have comets too. Other worlds shed fragments. Other nurseries fling their leftovers into the void. Atlas is proof stitched across the sky. A quirky tidbit. When Borisov was studied, astronomers detected cyanide gas in its tail, the same molecule found in many of our comets. Cyanide, ironically both deadly and a potential building block of life's chemistry. Atlas may carry similar traces. Imagine that. Alien comets carrying the same molecular signatures as ours, scattering seeds of possibility across the galaxy like careless gardeners. You let the comet's significance sink in. It's not just a tourist, it's a teacher. A piece of evidence that broadens how we imagine other solar systems. We used to look at the night sky and see points of light distant and unreachable. Now, fragments from those systems are literally drifting through our own, handing us samples across light years. It feels like the cosmos saying, "Here, take a look at what else is out there." And yet Atlas doesn't boast. It doesn't explain itself. It just drifts, shedding dust, offering glimpses in silence. You find that soothing. Not everything worth learning comes with noise or urgency. Sometimes knowledge arrives gently, like a comet easing through the dark, glowing just enough for you to notice. As you float with it, you feel yourself expand too. Your mind stretches outward, imagining countless other systems, countless other wanderers, each carrying their own frozen libraries. Atlas is only one, but it is enough to remind you that the universe is larger, stranger, and more generous than you can hold all at once. And with that thought, your own worries feel small, like dust trailing behind a comet's tail, dissolving into the glow of something bigger. Now your imagination lets go of the distant, scholarly view and pulls you closer, so close that you're no longer watching Atlas from afar, but clinging to it, riding along as if you'd stowed away on its dusty back. The stars whirl slowly around you, the sun swells brighter ahead, and the tails stream out behind like endless banners. You feel weightless, though technically you'd be skidding across an icy surface at tens of kilometers per second. Not exactly a gentle carousel ride, but tonight we'll ignore the physics that would fling you into space in a heartbeat. The surface beneath you is jagged, black and fragile. Cracks spiderweb across it, and now and then a vent bursts, spitting gas into the void. You hold on as though the comet itself is exhaling beneath you. Each eruption feels like a shiver, a little kick propelling Atlas faster. Your grip is steady, though in truth there's no danger. You're here in dream form, safe, cushioned by imagination. Historians still argue whether Jules Verne, who once fantasized about voyages through the cosmos, truly foresaw the way people would long to ride comets. He wrote of cannonballs to the moon, but never of interstellar sleds like this. If he had, he might have smiled at the absurdity and thrill of surfing across a comet's tail. A quirky tidbit. In the 18th century, a few eccentric thinkers genuinely suggested that comets might harbour living beings. Frost-resistant creatures thriving in the cold, riding comets like nomads through the stars. As you crouch on Atlas's crust, you can't help but grin at the image of little frostfolk waving at you from icy caves. Maybe you're their guest tonight. The view from your perch is spectacular. Ahead, the sun glows like a blazing lighthouse, each day brighter, more commanding. Behind, Atlas's tails stretch across the darkness, glowing veils that fade into infinity. When you turn your head, you imagine Earth, tiny, blue, distant. One more star among billions, watching you ride your interstellar steed. The longer you hold this vision, the calmer you feel. There's no rush here, no destination you must reach. The comet doesn't worry about time. It doesn't hurry or slow down. It simply moves, pulled by the same laws that move galaxies, as steady and inevitable as your own breathing. In, out. In, out. The rhythm of physics is the rhythm of rest. You relax your grip on Atlas, realizing you don't even need to hold on. You're carried whether you cling or not. The comet bears you gently forward, and for a moment you feel almost fused with it, an extension of its icy body, another traveller in its endless journey. And as you sink deeper into that sensation, you let yourself ride, unafraid, content to drift wherever Atlas goes, as though the stars themselves are tucking you in. The ride with Atlas softens, the sun blazing nearer now, but your imagination slowly loosens its grip. You're not clinging to the comet anymore. You're drifting a little behind, watching as it continues on its singular path. Its coma glows wide, tails trailing like silk banners dissolving into space. It doesn't pause, it doesn't turn back. Interstellar objects never do. You think of Earth far below, where telescopes still track its every flicker. Astronomers continue their debates. Myths linger in old books. Data fills servers. But for you, the story winds down. Atlas has given its lesson, that even across light years of silence, fragments still find us, carrying whispers of other suns. Historians still argue whether Homer's description of blazing stars with streaming hair was inspired by a comet, or just poetic metaphor. Either way, you smile at the thought that people thousands of years ago looked up with the same awe you feel now, a continuity across centuries, bridging myth and science, all tied to glowing wanderers like this. And here's a quirky thought. Somewhere, another civilization may be doing the same tonight. Maybe on a planet circling a distant star, someone else is gazing at a comet from our solar system, drifting through their sky. For them, we are the source of the omen, the mystery. The idea is humbling and oddly comforting. You're not the only dreamer tracing comets across the night. Atlas glides past the sun, whether in brilliance or in fragments, and then it will leave us forever. A hyperbolic arc flung back into the interstellar dark, its brief dance in our sky fading into memory. You feel no sadness in this. The comet was never meant to stay. Its purpose was simply to pass, to remind, to be noticed once before, vanishing again. Now you return gently to Earth, drifting down through the calm night air. The hum of your fan, the softness of your pillow, the steady rhythm of your breath, all of it welcomes you home. You've carried stardust dreams back with you, fragments of an interstellar journey stitched quietly into your thoughts. And as Atlas recedes into silence, you too release your hold on wakefulness, letting the story dissolve into rest. You're safe, you're still, and like the comet itself, you're exactly where you're meant to be. So now, as the vision of Atlas fades into the dark, the pace slows with it. The comet is gone, but its calm remains, woven into your breathing, into the hush of your room. Every exhalation feels longer, smoother, as though you too are drifting outward into quiet space. Let your body sink fully into the mattress. Shoulders soften, arms rest heavy, legs melt into the sheets. Imagine yourself becoming part of the night sky itself, weightless, endless, free from every thought that tried to follow you here. The only thing left is stillness. Picture the comet's tails one last time, not fiery, not dramatic, but soft, pale veils dissolving behind it. Each strand becomes a thought leaving your mind. Worries curl away like dust in sunlight, fading until they're invisible. What remains is clear space, open, calm, ready for dreams. The stars above, steady and unhurried, remind you that time moves gently at its own rhythm. You don't need to chase it. You don't need to hold anything. Just breathe, just rest. And as your eyelids grow heavier, feel yourself carried forward. Not by effort, but by inevitability. Sleep is a current, like gravity, drawing you inward. You don't resist it, you don't control it, you simply allow it. Just as Atlas surrendered to the pull of the sun, you surrender now to the pull of rest. The journey is complete, the comet has passed, and you are already drifting softly into your own quiet orbit of dreams.